In this video, we delve into the far-reaching consequences of Trump's climate rollback, examining how it extends well beyond American borders to become a global crisis. With shifts in regulations leading to increased emissions and stalling progress on clean energy, the repercussions are felt worldwide. We'll explore the weakening of international cooperation, the rise of methane emissions, and the impact on vulnerable nations relying on climate aid. Join us as we dissect how the U.S. retreat from climate leadership not only undermines global policy but also endangers our planet's future. 1. Weakening global climate cooperation. The decision by former President Donald Trump to exit the Paris Agreement marked a pivotal moment in global climate policy. This move sent shockwaves around the world, as the United States was seen as a leader in climate action. By withdrawing, Trump inadvertently gave other nations a reason to delay or soften their commitments. For countries already hesitant to make drastic changes, the U.S. exit was a green light to take a step back. Nations like India and China, which had been under pressure to reduce emissions, found themselves less compelled to act urgently. The ripple effect of this decision weakened the collective effort required to tackle climate change. In essence, the U.S. departure from the Paris Agreement signaled a retreat from global responsibility. 2. Rising emissions from loosened regulation. Under Trump's administration, regulations on coal, oil, and gas industries were rolled back significantly. This shift made the U.S. a larger contributor to global emissions, undoing years of progress. The relaxation of these rules encouraged increased production and consumption of fossil fuels. The Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, saw its power reduced, making it harder to enforce environmental standards. As a result, industries that were previously held accountable found new freedom to pollute. This change was not just a domestic issue, it had global implications, as increased emissions contribute to the worldwide problem of climate change. The U.S., once a beacon of hope for environmental progress, became a symbol of regression. 3. Slowing clean energy progress. Trump's cuts to clean energy funding had a ripple effect that was felt across the globe. By reducing investment in solar and wind technologies, the U.S. slowed the advancement of these crucial energy sources. Innovation in renewable energy is vital for reducing reliance on fossil fuels, and America's leadership in this field was crucial. The reduction in funding stunted growth, leaving other countries without the guidance and support they relied on. As a result, emerging technologies in solar and wind faced delays, setbacks, and reduced innovation. This slowdown was felt worldwide, as nations looked to the U.S. for leadership in clean energy development. Without it, progress stagnated, and the fight against climate change became more challenging. 4. Loss of U.S. leadership impacting global policy. Without the U.S. leading the charge, countries like Brazil and Australia felt less pressure to commit to strict climate action. The absence of American leadership on the world stage emboldened nations to prioritize economic growth over environmental responsibility. Brazil, with its vast Amazon rainforest, faced criticism for its deforestation practices but found itself under less scrutiny. Similarly, Australia's coal industry continued to thrive without fear of international backlash. The lack of U.S. influence allowed these countries to sidestep stringent policies, contributing further to global warming. The vacuum created by the U.S. retreat was filled by inaction, leaving the planet vulnerable to the consequences of climate change. 5. Increasing methane emissions. As one of the most potent greenhouse gases, methane saw an increase due to Trump's rollback of emission rules. Methane is more effective at trapping heat in the atmosphere than carbon dioxide, making it a significant contributor to global warming. The relaxed regulations on methane emissions from oil and gas operations allowed for greater release of this harmful gas. This change had a direct impact on global climate efforts, as methane emissions are a major target for reduction. The increase in methane levels added to the already daunting challenge of combating climate change. The U.S. decision to ease restrictions not only affected its own environment but had global repercussions, making the fight against climate change even more difficult. 6. Ignoring climate change's role in natural disasters. During Trump's presidency, natural disasters like wildfires, hurricanes, and droughts intensified. However, Trump consistently refused to acknowledge the role of climate change in these events. This denial hindered efforts to address the root causes of such disasters. By dismissing the scientific consensus on climate change, Trump's administration failed to implement necessary measures to mitigate these events. The lack of action left communities vulnerable to the devastating effects of natural disasters. This refusal to accept climate change as a factor not only affected the US but also set a poor example for the world. The global community watched as one of the most powerful nations ignored the science, leading to missed opportunities for collaborative action. 7. Disappearing climate aid for developing countries. Developing countries that relied on US climate aid for adaptation found themselves without crucial support. Trump's policies led to the disappearance of funding that was vital for these nations to combat climate challenges. Countries in Africa, Asia, and Latin America that were already struggling with the impacts of climate change faced even greater hardships. The withdrawal of aid made it difficult for them to implement necessary adaptation measures. As a result, these countries experienced increased vulnerability to climate-related disasters. The lack of support from the US highlighted the disparity between developed and developing nations in addressing climate change. Without the financial backing, many of these nations found themselves at a disadvantage in the global fight against climate change. 8. Encouraging fossil fuel expansion. Trump's policies made fossil fuels more attractive, encouraging countries like Russia and Saudi Arabia to expand oil production. The administration's focus on energy independence and economic growth led to increased fossil fuel extraction. This shift sent a message to other oil-producing nations that fossil fuels were still a viable and profitable resource. As a result, countries with vast oil reserves found themselves incentivized to increase production. This expansion further contributed to global emissions, counteracting efforts to transition to cleaner energy sources. The emphasis on fossil fuels under Trump's administration not only affected the US but also influenced global energy markets, hindering progress toward a sustainable future. 9. Silencing climate science. Under Trump's administration, climate scientists found themselves silenced, affecting global climate research and policy. The suppression of scientific findings limited the ability to make informed decisions about climate action. Scientists faced restrictions on their work, with reports being altered or withheld from the public. This censorship had a chilling effect on the scientific community, stifling innovation and progress. The lack of transparency and support for climate research hindered the development of effective policies. The global community relied on US research to inform their own strategies, and the suppression of science left a void in the collective understanding of climate change. This setback had far-reaching implications, affecting efforts to combat climate change on a global scale. 10. Setting back climate action. Trump's environmental rollbacks set back climate action by years, making it harder to meet global warming targets. The dismantling of policies designed to reduce emissions and promote sustainability created obstacles for future administrations. These rollbacks delayed progress, allowing emissions to rise unchecked. The impact of these decisions will be felt for years to come, as the world struggles to catch up on lost time. The setbacks created by Trump's policies made it increasingly difficult to achieve the goals set by the Paris Agreement. The global community is now faced with the challenge of overcoming these obstacles and finding new ways to address climate change. The legacy of Trump's climate rollback serves as a reminder of the importance of commitment and cooperation in tackling environmental issues.